Among the Project Drawdown top 100 climate solutions, reduced food waste is solution number 3. Food waste is a problem at multiple levels in the food production system. In places where income is low and infrastructure is weak, food loss is typically unintended and structural in nature, such as bad roads, lack of refrigeration or storage facilities, poor equipment or packaging, or a combination of heat and humidity. Wastage occurs earlier in the supply chain, rotting on farms or spoiling during storage or distribution. But in regions of higher income, willful food waste dominates farther along the supply chain. Retailers reject food based on bumps, bruises, coloring, aesthetic objections of all sorts. Other times, they simply order or serve too much. Consumers might spurn imperfect vegetables in the produce section, or overestimate how many meals they will cook in a week, or toss out milk that has not gone bad, or forget about leftover lasagna in the back of the fridge. In too many places, kitchen efficiency has become a lost art. Producing uneaten food squanders a whole host of resources, from seeds to water to energy, land, fertilizer, hours of labor, and it generates greenhouse gases at every stage. Let's take a look at a simplified farm-to-table pathway in the United States. Food is produced on a farm. Generally, it's trucked to a warehouse for storage. Eventually, it's trucked to a store to be sold to a consumer, and the consumer drives it home. Alternatively, from that warehouse, the food might be trucked to a restaurant or cafeteria where the customer comes to dine. At each stage, there is potential for food waste. On a large farm, often the margins or edges of fields are not harvested by harvesting equipment, so some of the harvest may be left in the field. Some vegetables may ripen out of schedule, either ripening too early so they're overripe on harvest day, or ripening too late so that they are underripe and rejected by the harvesters. At the warehouse, some food will not make it through the storage times. Other food items may be damaged or discarded during the packaging process. At a restaurant, there's usually prep waste, for example, the tops of the carrots and other parts that are not typically used. Although restaurants try to minimize it, there may be spoilage. In American restaurants, there's a tremendous amount of uneaten food that's been served to the consumer but returned to the kitchen or left on the plates. Due to health department reasons, this cannot be served to anyone else. On the retail path, if that food was headed from the warehouse to a retail store, at the store levels there may be shelf damage or spoilage in storage. Customers may reject imperfect items like dented cans or a jar that something got spilled on. When that food gets to your home, perhaps you forget about it and it rots in the back of the fridge. You will have prep waste, and there may be uneaten food. If you're not in the habit of eating leftovers, extra portions may go to waste. Now, there are plenty of things you can do about food waste at each layer of this process. Let's start with home. When you're shopping, buy the appropriate quantities. Resist overbuying. As you cook, learn to use the entire vegetable or as much of it as is possible. Reskill, learn how it is done. Make stock with fading vegetables or those carrot tops. Learn food preservation. Eat leftovers, make it a habit. Buy your groceries from a source or a store where they're conscious of these problems, where they're participating in composting systems. Some grocery stores participate in industrial composting programs. Small vendors, like farmers market vendors, often haul the food waste back to the farm for on-site composting. Some may donate wilted vegetables to gleaning programs for food banks. If you eat at a restaurant, order only what you will eat, or split a dish with a friend. Ask your restaurant what they are doing behind the scenes, and choose restaurants which are participating in industrial composting. Take home your leftovers because they can't be served to anybody else, and then be sure to eat them or combine them into another dish you're making at home. Choose farms that participate in gleaning programs. Make sure your farm is one that does on-site composting. Talk to your farmer. For all of these, get involved in political action to encourage industrial composting. For example, some municipalities offer local composting pickup for restaurants in their area. Culver City has a pilot program which does this. Some industry-wide programs create large-scale composting. In the LA area, Vaughn's grocery stores send their produce department waste to an industrial composting facility. So first, we seek to reduce every bit of food waste that we can. Then, for the waste that we absolutely cannot avoid, we compost. Nearly half of the solid waste generated around the world is organic or biodegradable, meaning it can be decomposed over a few weeks or months. On Project Drawdown's top 100 climate solutions list, composting is number 60. Composting is true recycling in its purest, most natural form. Today, much organic waste ends up in landfills. It decays in the absence of oxygen, producing the potent greenhouse gas methane, which is up to 34 times more powerful than carbon dioxide over 100 years. Compost is nature's cleanup system. Imagine if all the plants and trees that had ever sprouted, all the bodies that had ever been born, were still hanging around. Ugh! Instead, nature has cleaned all this up. She has created entire networks of organisms, worms, insects, mollusks, fungi, bacteria, to do the work. Compost happens. It's a natural process, and it's easy to participate in. Actually, you're just the facilitator. You set things up, stand back, and let nature do her thing. What can you compost? Anything that used to be alive. In urban areas, we tend to limit that to things that used to be plants. If you live in a house, you can do conventional composting for your household in the backyard. There are plenty of resources on how to begin composting. Now, people can get really fussy about composting instructions, so don't worry too much. Remember, this is nature's process, so really, you're just setting up some nice conditions for her to do her work. She needs to have plenty of organic matter. She needs to have access to air or air pockets. She likes to have a certain volume of material, and she likes things to be moist. That means that in a dry climate like Southern California, compost needs to be watered. It should be moist like a wrung-out kitchen sponge. If you live in an apartment, you can collect your compost to donate to a local composting program. In LA, some nonprofits are setting these up. LA Compost offers collection points at some farmers markets and other spots within the greater LA community. Some community gardens may accept donated food scraps, especially from their members. If you don't make much in the way of food scraps, you can freeze it as you collect so that it doesn't get smelly between drop-offs. In either a house or an apartment, you can use a worm bin to compost kitchen scraps. My sister has her worm bin right in her kitchen, which makes it really easy to scoop food trimmings off the cutting board directly into the proper bin. Remember, the objective is not simply diversion from landfills. The bigger objective is participating in a circular system by returning organic matter to the soil. In this instance, organic matter means things which used to be plants. In this way, you can help reverse soil erosion, help boost soil nutrition levels, help grow healthier plants, and help build a healthy ecosystem that sequesters carbon and reverses global warming.